How do people around the world connect areas separated by bodies of water? Some countries build massive bridge structures over 93 miles long, letting trains or cars easily cross huge stretches above the water. There are also tunnels that help to get across bodies of water, but with a few advantages over bridges. The distances are shorter here, though there are examples where the number of miles you have to cover underwater goes over 18. And now take a look here. The Strait of Gibraltar is a place where Europe and Africa, Spain and Morocco are just 8 miles apart. And yet, there's no bridge, no tunnel, even though that could revolutionize the economy and transport systems of several countries at once. However, chances are the situation will change pretty soon because Spain and Morocco are working on an ambitious transport megaproject over 25 miles long and costing around $15 billion, which will finally connect the two continents at the most convenient point. Today, we'll take a look at what exactly they're planning to build between the two continents. Obviously, in the place where Europe and Africa are the nearest to one another, a route connecting them was bound to appear. Today, you can cross from Morocco to Spain, or the other way, by water transport, like ferries. The important thing is to avoid traveling these routes during rush hour. For example, in summer, when the so-called Operation Crossing the Strait takes place, a major yearly logistics operation organized by the Spanish authorities to manage and ensure the safe and smooth transit of people and vehicles from Europe to North Africa. It's one of the biggest logistic events in the world. For example, in 2024, a record was set. Over 3.4 million passengers and almost 846,000 vehicles passed through Spanish ports. Obviously, such a load is a big problem for ferry transport because there were traffic jams and serious delays. Yes, even though this logistical operation is carefully planned out every year, ferry service is simply inefficient too. Just imagine. First, you have to board the ferry, then spend quite a bit of time sailing from the Moroccan coast to the Spanish coast or the other way around. According to the companies running the ferries on the Spain-Morocco routes, the trip takes about an hour and a half. Then you need some extra time just to get off. And if you're transporting a vehicle, loading it onto the ferry and then unloading it takes even more time. You know what else can be a problem? The weather in the Strait of Gibraltar can get pretty rough. Usually in the winter months, Atlantic cyclones get more active, which brings strong westerly winds and heavy rain to the strait. On top of that, the Strait of Gibraltar creates a funnel effect that makes the wind even stronger. In 2014, for instance, that led to wind speeds reaching 69 miles per hour. So during strong winds, the ferry won't let anyone board. It'll just wait for better weather, because this kind of transport isn't made to be rocking with people on the waves. That means a person who urgently needs to get from one shore to the other simply won't be able to do it at any given time. Besides passengers and cars, goods also travel across the strait from one shore to the other, quite actively too, since this is the most convenient spot for trade between Morocco and Spain, and between several European and African countries at once. For example, one of the main Spanish ports near Gibraltar, called Algeciras, reported in 2023 that almost 392,000 units of freight vehicles were shipped through it heading to Morocco. Another source forecasted that the number of trucks and other vehicles sent from Spain to Morocco would grow to 500,000 units. The total volume of goods moved between Spain and Morocco is also at a decent level. For instance, in 2021, the Spanish port authorities reported that the country's main coastal facilities handled about 14.5 million tons going to Morocco. But since cargo moves by sea transport, in some cases, there can be delays. Or if bad weather hits, then the cargo doesn't move either and waits for things to get better. All that means more time. And in trade, extra time means less money, so many companies might not be too happy about sea freight in this area. All this points to the fact that a more familiar route through Gibraltar, where you can go by land, has been overdue for a while. Of course, the idea of building a bridge came up. Why not? Structures like these are made to overcome obstacles like water. For example, there was a proposal from Tung Yen Lin, a Chinese-American civil engineer. He came up with the idea to build a bridge 8 miles long, enough to cross the narrowest part of the strait. Besides that, the proposed design was supposed to have a span of 16,400 feet, which is twice as long as the longest span of any existing bridge right now. How much would it cost? This was the hot question on everyone's mind as soon as the idea came up. So according to the estimates, building a bridge connecting Europe and Africa would cost around $15 billion. Besides the huge price tag, a bridge isn't the most reliable way to connect two countries. Weather could make it so that vehicles crossing the bridge wouldn't be able to get safely from point A to point B. So maybe a tunnel? Yeah, of course that was suggested too. Even in 1930, there was a tunnel project planned by the Spanish side. However, the Spanish did their research and realized there was really tough rock under the bottom, which would have been a total roadblock for the technology they had at the time. So does that mean the continents can't be connected at all? Well, that was back then. But these days, technology is way more advanced, and Spain and Morocco want it way more than before. Economic growth, bigger trade volumes, more people moving between countries. Basically, there definitely needs to be a way to get through safely, not by swimming. And just recently, there's been another bold tunnel plan. Back in 1979, the Spanish-Moroccan Declaration was signed, and one of the outcomes was the creation of Segegsa in 1981, a corporation funded by the Spanish government with a clear task to explore the idea of building a bridge. However, in 2003, the decision was made to go with an underwater tunnel after all. Obviously, the tunnel should be built where the distance between the shores is shortest. But it's not that simple. The new tunnel won't be built there. At the narrowest point of Gibraltar, the depth reaches 2,950 feet. For comparison, the deepest underwater tunnel right now, the Norwegian Ryfylke, sits 955 feet below sea level. Also in Norway, another tunnel called Rogfast is being built, which will lie at a depth of 1,280 feet below sea level. Overall, 2,950 feet is a huge number. And honestly, it's not clear how to even pull off a project like that. There's no real experience. In the end, according to the plans, the tunnel will follow a different route in an area known as the Camerino Sill, where the depth ranges from 980 to 1,640 feet. Yes, as stated, the final length of the tunnel will reach 26 miles, 17 of which will be underwater. But this way the project can be carried out with way fewer complications and dangers. The tunnel will be built for trains, and the track layout includes two tubes, each with a railway line, one for trains heading to Morocco, the other to Spain. At the same time, there will be a service tube in between them used for maintenance work and evacuating people in case of an emergency. So basically, the design will look a lot like the Channel Tunnel. Two tubes underwater, only this one's deeper and shorter. Plus, the engineers say building the Channel Tunnel was much easier because of the geology in that area. To assess the strength and stability of the rock formations, Spain allocated 2.3 million euros in January 2025 for a geomechanics research program, under which the German company HeronConnect is carrying out seismic drilling surveys of the Strait seabed. By the way, the fact that HeronConnect is involved gives us another hint about the new tunnel. There's clearly going to be a ton of work involving tunnel boring machines, since HeronConnect is one of the leading producers and users of that kind of tech. At the work site, you might see a machine like this one. It's called a gripper. These are high-performance machines specially designed for tunneling through solid rock. They move forward by pressing hydraulic grips against the tunnel walls, while a rotating cutter head with disc tools breaks up the rock, which is then cleared out. Thanks to this, gripper machines can achieve high tunneling speeds in the right conditions. Chances are mixed shield machines will show up too. Tunnel boring machines designed to work in mixed ground where geological conditions can shift suddenly. In short, if you start off with soft soil and then hit something hard, that's going to be a problem for a lot of TBMs, but definitely not for this one. And those two types of machines clearly won't be the end of it. There'll be loads of equipment. And the traditional drill and blast method obviously won't be left behind either. All in all, the scale of the work is going to be absolutely massive. Experts estimate the project's cost at over 15 billion euros. That figure includes not just laying the main tunnel, but also building coastal tunnel boxes, ventilation engineering stations, and emergency exits, as well as integrating with terminals designed to carry cars, similar to the Channel Tunnel. On top of that, the project features a pressure drop system for natural ventilation and multi-zone airlock chambers to seal off sections in case of emergencies, all in line with top international tunneling standards for earthquake-prone areas. But it still doesn't quite feel like it adds up to 15 billion euros. Thing is, a decent part of the project's cost comes down to how insanely complicated it is to build a tunnel through Gibraltar, especially compared to other similar builds. For example, due to strong underwater and near-surface currents that can interfere with installation work and foundation structures, They're proposing to use special drifting locks and bypass channels to divert water during the assembly of the tunnel boring shield. The area is also seismically active. Here in the Strait of Gibraltar, the Eurasian and African tectonic plates collided and are still pushing hard against each other, and the whole region can definitely feel it. Well, the builders will feel it too, hopefully without any accidents. That's exactly why safety will have to be taken seriously. And of course, that means extra costs. According to analysts, once the design phase and lab tests are done, work will begin on prepping the construction sites and purchasing tunnel boring machines. Delivery and installation are expected between 2026 and 2028. Full-scale tunnel construction could kick off in 2030, with the first passenger services roughly around 2040. But this estimate is far from final. The project is incredibly complex, and it comes with so many specifics that nearly every task will need its own custom solution. It's a world-class challenge, one they'll surely pull off, no matter what it costs Spain and Morocco. Why? It's all about the payoff. Of course, first thing when the tunnel's built, Moroccan and Spanish companies will lose less because of delays and other issues tied to the current routes through Gibraltar. One tunnel can actually give a real boost to economic ties between these two countries. The tunnel is also rightly called the door of Africa to Europe and vice versa, because after it's built, Africa will be directly connected by land to Europe. In case the tunnel is built, Europeans will find it way easier to move their production, service it on Moroccan soil with cheaper labor, and then ship products back from another continent to Europe. In the end, Morocco will get whole factories that both produce goods for the local market and create jobs, and European companies will be really happy they managed to save on certain costs. Sounds like a perfect scenario. For example, Renault from France and Stellantis from the Netherlands have already opened their factories in Tangier and Casablanca, so there are more cars in Morocco now. And a ton of jobs are popping up because car factories mean lots of job opportunities. And now, imagine this. Thanks to moving the production of these two companies in 2023, Morocco became the biggest car supplier to the European Union. Surprisingly, it even left behind China and Japan, those big players in the car market. At the same time, Morocco isn't planning to stop. The government set a goal that within a few years, the country has to do everything to start producing 1 million cars a year. And by the end of 2025, they're already expecting Morocco to produce 800,000 cars, so there's not much left to reach that ambitious number. And let's not forget, Morocco does all this without a tunnel. When a new route through Gibraltar opens up, the country will have a great chance to boost car production, as well as ramp up capacity at other factories. All this without worrying about major delays anywhere that could cause economic losses. Of course, we can't forget about another kind of trade between Morocco and other African countries with Spain and some European states. Basically, once the tunnel through Gibraltar is up and running, these countries will have a route that lets them deliver goods with less risk and in some cases in a shorter amount of time. For the Andalusia region and northern Morocco, the project will become a driving force for infrastructure growth. The Spanish port of Algeciras, which already handles over 109 million tons of cargo a year, will get the chance to shift some of its cargo flows from sea terminals to rail trains. This will ease the pressure on overcrowded docks and create demand for new warehouses, sorting centers, and service areas along the tunnel route. The same story goes for the Moroccan port in Tangier, which handles millions of tons of cargo every year. Thanks to the new tunnel, it can now send part of its trade flows by rail, freeing up capacity for other tasks. This kind of relief can help put the freed up port capacity to use for trading with new partners or boosting trade volumes with old ones. The passenger sector will also be a key beneficiary. The idea of a high-speed train that can get someone from Madrid to Casablanca without having to change vehicles will shift the way we see cross-border travel between Spain and Morocco, and between Europe and Africa as well. First of all, everything will happen way faster than it does now. Second, traveling only by train is just way more convenient. And third, you'll be able to move between continents not only when the weather's right, but anytime you need. According to estimates, the tunnel will serve up to 12.8 million passengers annually, which is almost several times higher than the current yearly passenger numbers for ferry companies. For tourism, this means not only more visitors, but also broader routes, ranging from one easy Spain-Morocco ticket to all-in-one Europe-Africa programs with tours, car hires, and packages where traveling through the tunnel is just the first step of the trip. From the perspective of the EU and the African Union, the project has not just economic, but also geopolitical weight. Amid growing volatility in sea routes and risks linked to climate disasters and regional conflicts, the land corridor will strengthen the security of critical resource transit from food and medicine to gas and electricity. Duplicating the sea route will also build a reserve branch for the Continental Railway network as part of TEN-T, or Trans-European Transport Network, and PITA, or Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa, improving the resilience of logistics chains on the scale of intercontinental markets. However, the question of how exactly the two countries will be connected by the railway still needs to be solved, because right now there are some issues with that. Most of the Spanish railways, especially in the southern regions, use the wide so-called Iberian gauge of 66 inches. At the same time, Morocco has fully switched to the standard European gauge of 56 inches. This difference makes direct rail connections between the two countries impossible without complicated technical solutions. When it comes to the tunnel project, it means you can't simply dig a route underwater and link the two countries. A system needs to be developed that lets trains run freely between the two continents. One option is to build gauge changing stations on both ends of the tunnel, where special equipment, either automatically or with staff assistance, changes the train's wheel width. This setup's already in use in Spain to connect with France, but it requires time and additional expenses. Another more ambitious option is to make the tunnel part of a new integrated network. Spain's already actively building new high-speed lines with European gauge, including in the southern regions. The tunnel project could be directly linked to these new lines, which would allow trains from Morocco to reach major Spanish cities without any hurdles and then go on to the rest of Europe.